I just want to take this conversation to the next level. You mentioned about your Fulbright scholarship. You're known for your invention of email, but this part of you about your Fulbright scholarship in the study of medicine, bridging the West and the East in medicine, or connecting and analyzing the differences and similarities between West and the East in medicine. That's something the world. I don't know. I should use the word less know about you, and I just want to hear from you about your experiences in your Fulbright scholarship, and most importantly, what kindled your interest in medicine.
Yeah, so I think first of all, Mala, one thing people need to understand, if you're a true innovator and a true creative person, you don't just do one thing. I never defined myself as the invention of email, never wanted credit for it. All the stuff occurred 33 years later. But after the invention of email as a kid, the reason I was fortuitously created email in 1978 was because I was working in a small medical college in Newark, New Jersey. So we have to ask the question, why was I working as a small medical college? As a 14-year-old, I had a position as a full-time research fellow in a small medical college. Well, how did I get that? Well, you have to unwind the story. You have to understand that I grew up in India. I was born in India in 1963. I grew up in an India that still has the caste system. And I remember one of my earliest memories of going to a young boy's home who was my friend, and his mother kept me out of the house, called me a Shudra, and gave me water in a different cup. So it was a very, very compelling memory. And that's why I got my interest in politics and understanding political systems. But independent of that, my grandmother in a small village in Tamil Nadu was a local Vaidya, right? In those days, and even now in most small Indian villages, and in ancient times, not so ancient times, in fact, women were the healers. And my grandmother had learned all this Siddha Vaidyam from different people. But she worked 16 hours in the field as a farmer. It wasn't like they were wealthy. But on the weekends, 30, 40 people would line up at her home. She would observe their face using an ancient technique called Samudrika Lakshanam and figure out what was going on in their body, and then would do personalized medicine. Everyone got different things, and she knew the art of this ancient system. So I was fascinated because I saw her anecdotally and observationally heal people. So that started my love of two things: political systems understanding as well as medicine. So that's why when I came to the United States in 1970, I was very motivated. Finished calculus at a young age at 9 and went to NYU on a special computer science program, and I got this job at that medical college. But initially in that medical college, I was doing research to understand why babies were dying in their sleep using computers. So we were getting data from baby sleep data, and we were watching sleep patterns to try to predict when the baby would go to sleep. So that was my initial interest, medicine. And while I was working there, I was given this other task to convert the entire interoffice paper-based mail system to the electronic version. So that's where it began. But when I came to MIT, I continued my interest in the fusion of medicine and computing. And that continued, did various projects in this field. But I also, some people may not know, I also have a degree in art and design. So in 1993, when the web was first coming, some people may know the internet sort of has existed in some form. The web was the graphical user interface for the internet. And that was 1992, 1993, when the World Wide Web came. I was in the middle of my PhD program at MIT, doing all sorts of research on pattern recognition. You see, when my grandmother would look at your face, she was doing pattern recognition because there are parts of the face which relate to different parts of the organ system. So I was doing a lot of research for my PhD work on pattern analysis, handwriting recognition, document analysis, a whole range of pattern recognition. And in 1993, Mala, there was a very interesting competition run by the United States White House. And that competition was to automatically analyze email for the White House. And the White House was getting lots of email, and they were looking for ways to automatically classify it, what you would call AI. I ended up winning that contest as a graduate student, left MIT in the middle of my PhD work, which again, a lot of people don't like people doing, but I did, and I started a company called Echo Mail. ECHOMAIL, which was another invention, which we grew to around $250 million company, which was all the Fortune 1000 companies would send us their email. We would analyze it, figure out the attitude, the issue, and we'd create responses. But parallel to that, I also created a company for helping artists go direct online. It was called Arts Online, very, very early, 1993. So when all of this was going on as I grew these companies, in 2003, something interesting happened. Remember, I'd left my PhD program in the middle. One of my professors at MIT said, you should come back and finish your PhD. There's a new field. And the field was called systems biology. Systems biology said that you have to understand the whole body as a system, which is what Ayurveda and Siddha people have been doing for nearly 10, 20,000 years, how many ever years they've been doing that for. But what had happened in 2003 was the Human Genome Project had ended, and we had gone into the Genome Project thinking that a human being had about 500,000 genes. We knew a worm only had around 20,000 genes. So we thought the human being was more complex because we must have more genes, and a worm had 20,000. Anyway, when the Genome Project ended in 2003, it started in 1993, we find out that a human being only has 20,000 genes, okay? So a human being has the same number of genes as a worm. So biologists had mistakenly thought more genes, more complexity, right? So what this led into a field called systems biology. People said it's not just the genes you need to look at. Genes create proteins. Proteins interact with the surrounding environment. They have feedback loops. These are called molecular pathways. So we moved outside of the nucleus to the whole cell. And one of the grand challenges in 2003 was, could you mathematically model the entire human cell? So this is fascinating. So I left my company, EchoMail, found someone to run it, and I came back to MIT to do this for my PhD, to create the first mathematical model of the entire human cell digitally. So just like email is a digital version of the interoffice mail system, imagine if you could create a digital version of the entire human cell at the molecular systems level. So I spent 4 years doing that, and that led to another invention called CytoSolve, CYTO, solve. So I'd created a whole technology platform that could mathematically model all the chemical reactions in the cell. Why is this important? Well, we could eliminate the need for animal testing. We could discover drugs faster and cheaper. We could do personalized medicine, and we could look at combinations of compounds.
Good.
Very, very important, because most of the Siddha and Ayurvedic things are not just a single compound, which is what a pharmaceutical drug is. They're combinations. And this is why pharma companies have stayed away from exploring the indigenous medicines, because they're too complicated, right? To understand.
And most importantly, they're not generic. That's what you have mentioned in one of your papers also on control systems of the Eastern medicine. You said the Western world of medicine is a very generic form of treating people, and it's not specifically addressing the specific problem of each person.
Yeah, so traditional systems of medicine were always about the right medicine for the right person at the right time, because the same medicine can be for a person at one time, but it may change based on how they're evolving, right? So right medicine for the right person at the right time. Western medicine was catching up to this, but only recently. It's called precision and personalized medicine. Most of Western medicine came from war. In fact, all of it. That's the origin of Western medicine. And in fact, the creator of modern Western medicine, you could argue, is Florence Nightingale. She wasn't a nurse. She was really someone who really was looking at soldiers who were dying in the battlefield. She created the modern healthcare system. But in the Western medicine form, it's always crisis care. Someone has a particular issue and you're trying to go solve that issue. Soldier gets shot in the lung, you're trying to fix the lung, or something happens in the liver, and the idea is to fix that and put him back on the battlefield. Eastern systems of medicine came from, a rishi, looking at nature for hundreds of hours and observing certain things and seeing interconnections. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. Western medicine is phenomenal for crisis care. Eastern medicine really evolved for maintenance and really understanding what was going on with the whole system. But anyway, so in 2003 to 2007, I created this technology called CytoSolve. And in 2007, I applied for a Fulbright, and I was fortunate to get one. And the Fulbright was, now that I have my PhD, I have all these degrees from MIT, let me go and take a little bit of time off in honoring my grandmother, and let me go study those ancient systems of Indian medicine, which I'd been studying anyway on my own. But I really wanted to take a big gap. So I went back to India in 2007. In fact, on the front page of MIT, they had a big photograph of me, and it said, armed with 4 degrees, Shiva Ayyadurai returns back to India. It's called East Meets West. And they were sort of interested. Why did I not just want to go and start my next company? Why did I want to go to India and to the travel all over and do this? But that's what I did for 2 years. And what I discovered, Mala, was the following. I discovered that any of you who are engineers, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, aeronautical engineer, whatever engineer you are, you will understand that one of the courses that you have to take, if you don't do it in undergraduate or graduate school, is something called control systems, engineering system science. And you find out, or thermodynamics. And when you look at the engineering fields, you find out that there are 9 principles which govern every system on the planet. And these 9 principles are the basis of Western civilization, all the very, very interesting technologies we have. So when I went back to India, what I uncovered was that there was a serious problem. First of all, there you have people like, who is it, Sadhguru or Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, whoever you have. You know, they have their turbans, they have their beards, and they will talk all the language of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Sankalpa, Karmas, Indriyas. But if you ask them, what do these terms actually mean? Like if you ask many of the Ayurvedic or these gurus, what is Vata, Pitta, Kapha? Explain it to me. Vat, Pitta, Kapha are the 3 of the terms.
Nadi. Nadi, right?
Well, yeah. No, they're the Tridoshas, okay?
Yeah.
And the Tridoshas come from the Panchabhutas, right? They can't explain it. So what's happened over 400 years, particularly after British occupation of India, is the Ayurvedic and Siddha traditions get practiced, but the people practicing them, they're just doing it by memory. They don't even know they can't explain it. So the Western world looks at these ancient systems of medicine and they think, oh, this is just some foolishness. This is just some snake oil, right? But what I discovered, and hasn't been done, is that the entire system of Ayurveda and yoga, I unified into these 9 principles. When I learned what I discovered, what I uncovered was the entire system of Indian medicine and yoga also has those 9 principles. And it is a direct one-to-one replica of engineering systems. This is fascinating. So what's fascinating is that I wrote that in a paper called a Rosetta Stone of Eastern and Western medicine. We got it published. And it was the first articulation ever of revealing that the ancient systems of Indian yoga and medicine were really an engineering system. Because see, they didn't have the words like molecules or et cetera, but they had to see that the body is an interconnected system. So these 9 principles are the same principles you learn in control systems engineering. Input, output, transport, conversion, storage, goal, sensor, controller, and a disturbance, okay? Well, those same things show up in India. It's Sankalpa, it's the Indriyas, it's the Manas, it is the Karma and Karma fall, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and Vikritis, you see? Same thing. And I put it into a nice form and you could finally see it. And when I came back after finishing my Fulbright in 2010, I started Cytosolve as a company. But at the same time, because I always like teaching, I started a course at MIT. It was a lecture series. It became one of the most popular, probably the most popular lecture series. And it was called Traditional Medicine and Systems Biology. And in that course, you know, we used to offer it Thursday night for 3 hours. One side of the room, 200, 300 people would show up. One side of the room was Harvard, MD, PhDs, engineers, you know, your conventional Western trained scientists. And the other side of the room, you had yogis showing up, you had naturopaths showing up, you had acupuncture showing up. And when they sat on one side of the room, it was fascinating. And within about 3 hours, I was able to educate them that the people on this side who practice alternative medicine, the reason they had suffered in their journey was they weren't able to explain what the hell they were doing. And I had created this language. And the people on the left side, the conventional Western trained engineer scientists, their lights went off. They said, wow, there's a whole systems base of understanding that we don't learn in medical school. So that became a course which we call Systems Health, which was another innovation. And that became a whole educational program. And we've trained thousands and thousands of MDs, tens of thousands of yoga people. I taught it as a continuing CME course at Harvard. And what this Systems Health does, it bridges East and West, but it breaks down all the barriers. You see, what's happened, just like people will be upset with big pharma in the United States, right? We also have to understand we have big gurus in India, okay? They wear all their garb, but they have made the understanding of yoga and Indian medicine very, very esoteric. In fact, I don't think many of them even know what they're practicing.
Probably, is it not the fundamental difference in the way education is handled? Because in India, traditionally, it's the system of Guru Shishya Parampara, where you get your knowledge from your guru. It transforms to you and to your students. That's the way it has been developed. And westernizing, or probably I should say, serving it to the West about what is done in India might. Do you think that would really fit to the Western society? How do you think is the acceptance of this kind of bridging courses to East, bridging courses between the Eastern medicine and Western medicine is seen in countries like United States?
The first issue is the Eastern systems of medicine are not a medical system. They're actually engineering systems. That's the big discovery that comes out of my work. Mm-hmm. And so we evolved that into something called Systems Health. But the key thing was, Mala, we democratized this knowledge. You see, you have to go.
You're working directly against the interest of pharma companies here, sir.
Well, not that, and also against the interest of big gurus.
Yeah.
The big guru model. If you want to talk about big pharma, we could also talk about big guru. Okay.
Yes, we can.
So you have the guru worship model in India, and people go and they'll spend lots of money. I'll give you an example. So Deepak Chopra, who heard about my work, and he had me come speak for 15 minutes at the Chopra Center. And it was an event where he sells his courses on perfect health. So I got up on the stage and I talked about the discovery of Systems Health, what we discovered that we can explain Ayurveda and Siddha in easy to understand terms. And we had created a course. Everyone during that night went and bought my course. No one bought his stuff. And it was fascinating because the Chopra Center, the salespeople were very upset with me. I got up on stage and I said, you don't need to buy my course. You can buy Deepak's course. Anyway, why am I sharing this with you? What's happened with the whole foundation of Indian medicine and yoga, it's been made to be some esoteric thing that you have to do this and that, and then you have to do all this stuff to learn this knowledge. What I've done is I've taken it out of that realm of esoteric and made it accessible to anyone. Within 3 hours, I can teach anyone the foundations of Indian medicine. Literally, okay? But what you find is that the foundations of Indian medicine, the foundations of control systems theory are one and the same. And then what you find is that you can use and this is basically what I call modern systems theory. You could use it to understand any system. Your body is a system, your society is a system, your job is a system, everything. In fact, politics is a system. So if you look at 3 of those 9 principles, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, what are they? Well, you'll find the same principles show up in general engineering systems theory, transport, conversion, storage. Transport is the aspect of movement of anything, information, matter, and energy, which is what Vata is. Conversion is those processes where you're converting anything from one form to another. I'm speaking into the microphone, sound waves are being converted to electrical signals. That's a conversion process. Pitta is that process, which is really, they typically on the health side is used for digestion, which is a conversion process. The third aspect is storage or structure. If you're making food in the morning, you need a pot. That is a storage structural element. This room has the structure, which is the beams and the walls. Your body has the bones. That is called the structure of the storage elements. So transport, conversion, storage, structure. In the Indian system, it's Vata, Pitta, Kapha, or Ayam. Okay? Same things. Well, no one has ever articulated it like this, Mala. So when you do this, everyone on this side gets it. Otherwise, oh, they're doing vata, pitta, kapha. I need to go bow down to my guru. I need to spend 20 years giving him, it's become this whole racket. Within 30 seconds, I can explain this to people now because we've deciphered what they mean. Now, what you
But
find is,
don't you think that there could have been a reason why this was transferred as a Guru Sishya Parampara? Taking so much of time and explaining it. I totally understand that you're able to, and I really
well,
appreciate that you're able to do it in 30 minutes. But why do you think? I have a strong feeling
first,
that my ancestors were super brilliant people, and they must have followed this Guru Sishya Parampara for a reason.
well, first of all, most of this stuff was taught very quickly. Let's just step back to the entire guru model, right?
Mm-hmm.
The typical model was you were with your parents, and then when you went to your guru after the age of 12, right? Most of the stuff look, yoga and meditation and this was not taught right at the beginning. When you really go look at many of the training, most of the training was to prove that were you a good human being. You were given tasks to do, work to do, math, all sorts of very, very laborious things to do. And, there's the famous story of Milarepa, right? People can go read about that. The typical guru model is you're creating someone to be a good human being, a person of integrity with ethics. After that, then you were taught yoga, meditation, and all this, okay? And that was done like that. So even in that guru training model, you didn't go in there and pay the guru $2,000, $10,000 to teach you yoga and meditation. Yoga and meditation was taught very quickly at the end because these were very powerful techniques, and any teacher didn't want to give you these techniques until you proved you were a kind, good, ethical human being. That was the original training mala. So people have forgotten that. So people go to these guru, a lot of very narcissistic people really are not nice people, will go get their yoga certificate or this certificate, but they don't have any basic ethics. Okay? The typical guru training was, did you build honor, right? Were you a person of integrity? Anyone should go read the Mahabharatas, right? Or the Ramayana, right? These are stories about honor. You look at the character of Rama. Meditation wasn't how he defined himself. He was an honorable human being. And that is what the relation between the guru and the student was. It wasn't there to go and say, okay, now I know how to eat turmeric and neem, or I know how to meditate and hear the sound current and have an out-of-body experience and da-da-da-da-da. That's what these gurus have become. And it's unfortunate because if more of those gurus teach people how to actually be good human beings and be human beings of integrity who stood up for truth, we would have a very different world. But instead, the guru worship model has gone far from that. And so what I'm saying is the discovery of understanding what the yoga system is in can be taught like that. And it's a very powerful system of knowledge. You have to look, right now, the science of systems is taught at many of the elite universities. And that science is used to control people and to manipulate people because everything in the world today is a complex system, including your body. So this engineering systems knowledge, you can call it Siddha Ayurveda, is a very powerful set of principles in science. And anyone who really learns this can be using it like a knife can be used by a surgeon to heal somebody, or can be used by a crook to kill somebody. These systems of knowledge are very powerful systems of knowledge. So in many ways, what the innovation we've done with systems health, which is now transformed to our global movement called Truth, Freedom, Health, because just like I told you, you have transport, conversion, storage, just like you have vata, pitta, kapha, you can translate to the political world, and it's actually is freedom, truth, and health. Freedom is motion of information, matter, and energy. Truth is this scientific method where you convert all sorts of crazy ideas to discover truth. And health is the infrastructure that is necessary to pursue truth and freedom. So what's evolved since all this, the most recent innovation we have is Truth, Freedom, Health. People want to go to truthfreedomhealth.com, and we brought everything together. At Truth, Freedom, and Health is a 12-part system. We teach you the science of systems. We teach you how your body is a system. We integrate East and West. But more importantly, we're also teaching people how to be warriors and scholars to fight for truth at the political level in decentralized, localized communities. So that's where, the work that I did on Ayurveda and Siddha, on the one hand, we've created systems health. We have Cytosolve, which is our powerful technology to discover new medicines. And we've helped many companies discover, validate medicines from natural products. We, in fact, just created our own brand of products, which I can talk about. But more importantly, this fundamental knowledge we're using to mobilize people all over the world to really become system scientists. And it's like Prometheus bringing fire to the earth. We've done that. So we have, for example, a woman who's a hairdresser. She has learned this and she teaches it to other people. It's a learn, teach, and serve model. You learn it, you teach it, and then you serve other people. So we've taken this very foundational knowledge. There's a book behind me called Systems Health. We've created a textbook for it. We've created an online curricula for it. We have the book called System and Revolution, which teaches people how you understand what is a system, what is a revolution. It's not taking guns and killing people. A revolution is ultimately a phase transition. So we've created a wonderful curriculum and a technology framework to disseminate this to everyone. So it's not, and in fact, there's a tool we've created called Your Body, Your System, which allows you to understand what my grandmother used to do. Instead of going all the way to India to a small village in Tamil Nadu, you can figure out what kind of system you are, which we call the natural system state. In the Indian system, that's called Prakriti. You can figure out when your system is disturbed, right? We call it a disturbance. In the Indian system, that's called your Vikriti. And the system actually mathematically can calculate which foods are right for you and educate you on the alchemy. So we have made it that easy. So people can start saying, oh, I'm a Vata person. I talk very quickly. If I eat more coffee, it'll show you, oops, I should limit how much coffee I drink. If you're a person who already gets very dry skin, right? Yes, you should take manjal or turmeric, but you should be careful how much you take. You see? So we've taken all this ancient knowledge and put it into a form that's accessible to everyone now. But this is why it's important to understand it is not about these knowledge systems that are important. Those can be taught very quickly. But the fundamental issue is, what kind of human being are you? Are you a person who cares for other people? Do you want to evolve yourself? And then how do you see your role in history right now? So that's why if you look at it, invention of email, we did Arts Online, we did Echo Mail, then I went and did Cytosolve, Systems Health, and the latest invention is Truth, Freedom, Health.
Perfect. That's great. I'm sure Agathir is going to be, super impressed if he was here. We are very close to the National Siddha Day.
But if you look at Agastya and you look at what Vaidyar meant, Vaidyar is a word that means healer. The word Vaidyar actually means healer and warrior, he who fights death. So if you look at Murugan, so the ancient story is Kartigan or Murugan, Shiva passed the knowledge of medicine to Parvati. Parvati then communicated to Murugan, and then he communicated to the first sage Agastya, right? But what we need to understand is Murugan is the god of war, and he's also the god of medicine. These actually go hand in hand. People have deliberately thought that these two are disparate systems. But if you want to fight for truth and justice and all those things, they're intimately related to your fight for medicine. So when I look at my own life, they're intimately intertwined. The caste system of India and me wanting to understand those political systems, what ended up making me a fighter. Also, I'm an activist. We've won many battles. We can talk about that on the political side, but it also made me a medical professional, who's considered one of the leading guys in the immune system. We've created Systems Health. We've created Cytosolve. So medicine and politics actually go hand in hand.